the search for another Prime Minister, the fourth in 6 years, all from the same party, all essentially the three previous ones, all essentially kebabbed in various ways by their own. Let's take a moment actually to reflect upon this. So Cameron wasn't forced out, but his position was rendered untenable by the loss of the Brexit referendum, which was brought about largely by the actions of his colleagues, chiefly Boris Johnson and Michael Gove. So not a stretch to describe his departure from Downing Street as a consequence of his colleagues' intervention, disapproval. Cameron got rid of by his colleagues. Theresa May got rid of by her colleagues. Boris Johnson got rid of by his colleagues. And 6 years later, along comes Liz Truss, who doesn't have the support of many of her colleagues. It is breathtaking. I always do this when I come back from holiday. You know that analogy I use about the pixels on the screen? In that your face is so close to the screen, you can't actually see anything except pixels. You just see lots of sort of little coloured dots flashing on and off. And you think that's the picture. I go away for a fortnight. I look from the distance. I get my Rabbie Burns hat on, see ourselves as others see us. It's madness. It's absolute madness. We look to outsiders like America looks to us now. Yeah, especially with this bizarre campaign in the Daily Telegraph for Boris Johnson to be allowed to come back or to have his name on the ballot paper. You know, the famous scene in Happy Days where Fonzie jumped a shark. The Daily Telegraph did that years ago on their political coverage. But my goodness me, this is just bonkers. So you've told us, right-wing newspapers have given us 3, soon to be 4, Conservative prime ministers that they insisted were incredible. And they've not lasted 10 minutes before being turned on by their own colleagues. Now, Labour Party hasn't landed a punch on a Conservative leader in over a decade. Labour Party had nothing to do with David Cameron's departure. The Labour Party had nothing to do with Theresa May's departure. The Labour Party had nothing to do with Boris Johnson's departure. It's incredible, right? It's just this absolute machine of malevolence that keeps spewing up another leader, fated and championed by toxic right-wing newspapers and then stabbed in the back 18 months later by their own colleagues, while the country teeters upon the edge of all manner of disasters. NHS in an absolute state, borders struggling in all sorts of ways. If you are one of the people who's terrified of desperate refugees in dinghies, then you're very cross about the borders. And if you are somebody who's cross about having your freedom of movement abolished, then you're cross about borders as well. We're all cross about bloody borders for various reasons. And some of us can even spell the word correctly, although generally not the ones who are cross about the people in dinghies. It's incredible when you think about it. Maybe it suits the purposes of the newspaper owners, I don't know. Maybe they quite like us all running around like lemmings. But four leaders in 6 years, all anointed as brilliant by the right-wing newspapers and all chucked out the cat flap 10 minutes later by their own colleagues. And do you think it'll be any different for Liz Truss? She'll probably lose a general election rather than be got rid of by her own colleagues. But if she gets dragged to a general election victory by Keir Starmer's failure to engage the nation and, of course, by the incredible client media that we have now in this country, then it'll be her colleagues that get rid of her as well, because eventually reality will prevail, as it prevailed in Dover on Friday.